I learned something ugly about power the day I came home and found a bulldozer parked across my driveway like it paid the mortgage. Not near it, not partly in the way. I mean dead across it, steel blade pressed into my gravel tracks, cutting over my property line like somebody had decided my land was now a suggestion. And the man behind it thought I'd be too tired, too outnumbered, or too polite to stop him. I bought my house in 2019 in Oregon on the quiet side, where the roads turn to gravel and the trees get thick enough to swallow sound. It sits at the end of a narrow dirt lane where if two trucks meet, one has to back up. After years in the Army, I wanted stillness mornings where the loudest thing around was a woodpecker losing its mind somewhere in the trees. The land next to mine was untouched woodland when I moved in. Then a developer named Trevor Holstead bought it, and within 10 seconds of meeting him, I knew what kind of man he was. Expensive boots with no dirt on them, sunglasses under gray skies, voice a little too loud. He was pacing by the road on his phone, saying things like, "Maximize lot yield and 14 units easy." He noticed me and said, "You live down here?" I told him yes. "Just bought the land next door," he said. "Going to turn it into something nice." That phrase, something nice. Developers always say that right before they bulldoze a place with more soul than anything they plan to build on it. I asked what he meant, and he said, "Luxury woodland community. Private road, maybe a gate, probably 14 homes." I told him I liked the woods the way they were. He laughed, just dismissive. "Trust me," he said, "this area is going to look a lot better when we're done." A few months later, construction started. At first, it stayed on his side, chainsaws, whining trucks, rumbling equipment growling behind the trees. Annoying, sure, but not my business. One Tuesday afternoon, I came home from work, turned down the lane, and slammed on my brakes so hard the grocery bags flew off the seat. A bulldozer was parked across my driveway. The blade was down in the gravel. The tracks crossed my property line. One of my fence posts was leaning sideways like it had just lost a bar fight. I sat there staring at it, waiting for some reasonable explanation to appear. Instead, a construction worker walked over and said, "You trying to get through?" I said, "That's my driveway." He shrugged. "You can park down the road for now." "For now?" He pointed toward the clearing. "Boss said, this is part of the access easement." I said, "There is no easement on my property." Another shrug. "Talk to Trevor." Then he walked away like the conversation was finished. So there I was. Groceries melting in the truck, staring at a machine blocking my driveway, while a stranger told me to deal with it later. I ended up parking down the road and carrying my bags through the trees in 2 trips. By the time I got inside, I wasn't loud angry. I was quiet angry, which is usually worse. That night, I pulled out the survey, the deed, the county parcel map, all of it. I checked every page. Then I checked the county database online just to be sure. No easement, no right-of-way, no shared access, nothing recorded anywhere. The next morning, I called Trevor. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Voicemail. So I called the county planning office. And that's when the whole thing stopped being annoying and started becoming dangerous. The woman there pulled the development file and told me Trevor's project had been approved with a required secondary emergency access route. A subdivision that size needed 2 ways in and out. Fine. Except according to the paperwork he'd filed, that temporary legal access had already been secured through my driveway. He had signed official documents claiming he had legal access across my property, and nobody had ever asked me or put a single paper in front of me to sign. I went back outside and looked more carefully at the entrance. That's when I noticed the fresh gravel. The bulldozer wasn't the only thing on my land. They had already started building their construction road past the boundary marker like they were easing into theft and hoping momentum would do the rest. Because men like Trevor count on the same thing every time they think a single homeowner will feel small, complain a little, then give up. What he didn't know was that patience had been drilled into me for years. Army life teaches you this fast panic is expensive, documentation wins. So I stopped thinking like a mad neighbor and started building a case. I filmed the property line with my phone, the tracks, the gravel, the leaning fence posts, the survey flags. Then I flew my little drone overhead. From the air, it was even clearer. His construction road curved off his parcel and slid right into my driveway like it had always belonged there. After that, I called a property attorney in town named Laura Whitaker. Laura had one of those calm voices that makes bad news sound useful. I sent her the drone footage, the parcel maps, the county documents, everything. She was quiet for a minute. Then she said, "Okay. Wow." She said, "This isn't just trespassing. He signed sworn filings claiming he secured legal access through your property. The county approved part of this project based on that statement." I laughed. "I definitely didn't sign anything." She paused, then said the sentence that changed everything. Good, then we have leverage. Within 24 hours, Laura sent Trevor's company a cease and desist letter with photos, maps, drone stills, parcel records, the whole paper trail. Stop using the property, immediately remove the encroachment, or get ready for an expensive problem. Trevor didn't answer. One of his project managers called instead and said it was probably just a misunderstanding and they'd move the bulldozer soon. Laura asked one question, define soon. Silence. Then he started talking about schedules and crews and delays, the usual corporate fog people use when they know they're wrong. Laura hung up and filed for an emergency injunction that same afternoon. 2 days later, Trevor's whole site went dead. Excavators parked, logging stopped, trucks stopped moving. The noise vanished almost overnight. Standing on my porch that evening and hearing actual birds again felt better than I can explain. Once the county reviewed the injunction paperwork, they noticed exactly what Laura noticed. Trevor's approval was tied to a sworn claim of legal access that did not exist. That triggered an investigation, and suddenly this wasn't me versus a bulldozer anymore. It was Trevor versus regulators and every signature he thought nobody would ever check. A week later, I was invited to a planning commission meeting in town. I expected a boring government room. I didn't expect to see future buyers sitting there, families who had put deposits down on homes in Trevor's luxury woodland dream. Trevor was there too. No sunglasses this time. Just a stiff jaw and a lawyer beside him. The planning director explained that the county had found discrepancies regarding the project's required emergency access route. Then he looked at Trevor and asked him to confirm that temporary legal access through the neighboring property had been secured. Trevor cleared his throat and said yes. The director nodded toward me. The owner of that property has submitted documentation stating no such agreement exists. The room went silent. Trevor tried to wriggle out of it. There may have been some miscommunication. Then the fire marshal spoke, and that was when the whole project started collapsing in public. He tapped the map and said, "Without the secondary access route shown here, this subdivision has only one point of entry. That means it does not meet county fire safety requirements." One buyer leaned forward and said, "Wait, are you saying the homes can't be built?" The fire marshal didn't soften it. No secondary access, no permits. After a short recess, the commission came back and revoked the development approval on the spot for misrepresentation and failure to meet emergency access requirements. Just like that, 14 luxury homes disappeared in one sentence. Trevor appealed, of course. But once the county findings became public record, the whole thing unraveled fast. Lenders got nervous. Investors backed off. Construction never restarted. A few months later, I drove past and saw foreclosure notices nailed to a wooden post near the entrance. The half-cleared land sat there, abandoned weeds, pushing up through the gravel they had poured across my driveway. A regional land conservation group bought the property. They started restoring the tree line, planting new growth, rebuilding habitat, undoing what had been torn apart. Slowly, the woods started to come back. Deer came back too. The creek sounded like itself again. Sometimes I sit on my porch in the evening and look at that stretch of forest that almost turned into a gated brochure, and I still think about that first moment, the bulldozer parked across my driveway like it owned the place. Trevor thought power meant equipment, money, speed, confidence, paperwork nobody would question. What he missed is that power gets fragile the second it's built on a lie. That was the lesson for me. Not revenge, though. I'd be lying if I said the foreclosure notice didn't feel poetic. The real lesson was this: greed rarely shows up looking evil. Most of the time it arrives smiling, calling itself progress, acting like the decision is already made, hoping your exhaustion will finish the job. And quiet people get mistaken for weak people all the time. They're not. Not when they know where the boundary line is and they're willing to stand on it. If Trevor had walked over that first day and said, "We need temporary access for a week. Can we work something out?" This story might end differently. Maybe there's a written agreement. Maybe there's respect. But he skipped straight past respect and went looking for entitlement, and that's where he buried his own project. Now the bulldozers are gone, the trees are growing back, and the only thing crossing that property line most mornings is a deer that actually belongs there. So here's the question I keep coming back to. When somebody with money and momentum treats your rights like an inconvenience, how far do you go to stop them? Do you negotiate? Do you fight? Do you let it slide to save yourself the headache? Or does letting it slide teach exactly the wrong lesson? Tell me what you think. Was this justice karma, or just a stubborn homeowner refusing to be pushed around? And if you've ever dealt with someone who acted like your peace, your property, or your boundaries were just details they could bulldoze past, share your story too.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.